Leo Tolstoy was not just one of the greatest novelists in history, he was a man who wrestled with the deepest questions of life, morality, and the meaning of existence. His journey was not one of fame and comfort but of spiritual rebellion against the very society that celebrated him. In this speech, we will walk through Tolstoy's remarkable life, from the young count born into Russian nobility to the man who abandoned wealth, questioned the church, defied the state, and became a prophet of peace whose ideas inspired Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. Tolstoy was born in 1828 on the Yasnaya Polyana estate, surrounded by privilege and luxury. Orphaned at a young age, he grew up searching for a sense of belonging. Even as a boy, he was keenly aware of death and the fragility of human life, a theme that would haunt his writings for decades. Like many young men of his class, he indulged in the pleasures of aristocratic life, gambling, drinking, duels, and the empty chase for status. Yet, beneath the chaos of his youth, there was a restless mind questioning the purpose of it all. His early experiences as a soldier in the Crimean War opened his eyes to the brutality of human conflict. He saw men reduced to numbers on a battlefield, lives extinguished for political ambition and pride. These experiences planted the seeds of his later pacifism and his distrust of governments that used violence in the name of order. From this pain emerged his first works, Childhood, Boyhood, and Sevastopol Sketches, which hinted at the great storyteller he was becoming. Tolstoy's literary genius reached its peak with War and Peace and Anna Karenina. War and Peace is not merely a novel about Napoleon's invasion of Russia, it's a meditation on history, fate, and the will of individuals. Tolstoy painted life in its rawest form, the grandeur of battle and the quiet intimacy of family life, the cruelty of war and the tenderness of human connection. In Anna Karenina, he explored the moral struggles of the human heart, passion, guilt, love, and the constraints of social expectation. These works brought him international fame, but Tolstoy was not satisfied with the applause of the world. Success only deepened his inner turmoil. By his late 40s, Tolstoy faced what he called a spiritual crisis. Despite his wealth, fame, and family, he was tormented by thoughts of death and the seeming meaninglessness of life. He confessed in his memoir A Confession that he contemplated suicide, feeling that life's pleasures could not hide the inevitability of suffering and death. But instead of succumbing to despair, Tolstoy went on a quest for truth. He studied the teachings of Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam, searching for a faith that could withstand reason. What he found was not in institutions or dogmas but in the simple teachings of Jesus, especially the Sermon on the Mount and the commandment to resist not evil. Tolstoy rejected the authority of the Orthodox Church, seeing it as corrupted by power and ritual. He believed that true Christianity was a call to live humbly, love one's neighbor, forgive enemies, and refuse to take part in violence. This interpretation of faith set him at odds with the Church and the Russian state. In 1901, the Orthodox Church excommunicated him, branding him a heretic. But Tolstoy did not waver. His writings on nonviolence, civil disobedience, and the rejection of state coercion spread across the world. His book The Kingdom of God is Within You became a spiritual guide for many reformers. Mahatma Gandhi, while living in South Africa, read the book and was deeply moved by Tolstoy's insistence on resisting evil with nonviolence. The two exchanged letters, and Gandhi later credited Tolstoy's ideas as a profound influence on his philosophy of satyagraha. Martin Luther King Jr. would also draw from Tolstoy's teachings on love and nonviolent resistance decades later. Tolstoy's rebellion was not only against political power and organized religion but also against the aristocratic privilege into which he was born. He gave up the comforts of his estate, dressed in peasant clothes, worked the fields, and lived simply. He advocated for the redistribution of land, fair treatment of peasants, and education for the poor. In doing so, he became a moral figure who lived according to his principles, even if it meant conflict with his own family, who struggled to accept his rejection of wealth. Yet Tolstoy's life was not without contradictions. He struggled with his own temper, his relationships, and the tension between his ideals and human nature. His marriage to Sofia Andreevna, once filled with passion, grew strained as he pursued his ascetic vision of life. These conflicts make Tolstoy's story profoundly human, a reminder that even great moral figures wrestle with their flaws. In his later years, Tolstoy continued to write essays and letters urging peace, denouncing war, and calling for a return to simple living. His words reached beyond Russia, touching the hearts of all who felt trapped by the machinery of power and violence. In 1910, at the age of 82, he left his home secretly, seeking solitude in his final days. He fell ill on a journey and died at a remote railway station, far from the comforts of his estate. Crowds gathered at his funeral, mourning not just a literary giant but a man who had become a conscience for humanity. Leo Tolstoy's legacy endures because he dared to ask the hardest questions: what is the purpose of life? How should we treat one another? Can love and forgiveness triumph over hatred and oppression? His answer was both simple and radical, that the kingdom of God is within us, and the path to peace begins with the individual conscience. Today, in a world still torn by violence, inequality, and spiritual confusion, Tolstoy's message is as urgent as ever. He shows us that greatness is not measured by power or fame but by the courage to live according to one's convictions, to challenge unjust systems, and to believe in the transformative power of love. When we read Tolstoy's works or reflect on his life, we see not only the mind of a genius but the heart of a man who sought to reconcile faith with reason, art with ethics, and power with compassion. His journey from a restless aristocrat to a prophet of nonviolence invites us to look inward, to question our own values, and to find meaning in service to others. Leo Tolstoy was a rebel not because he raised a sword but because he refused to do so. He stood against war when the world demanded it, against oppression when it was accepted, and against hollow ritual when it was praised. In his rebellion, he discovered peace, a peace rooted in love, humility, and conscience. That is why Tolstoy remains not only one of the greatest writers of all time but also a beacon for anyone searching for moral clarity in a troubled world.